Welcome back to the explainer. Okay, let's be honest. If just hearing the phrase clinical trial audit sends a sudden shiver down your spine, you are in the exact right place today. Our mission here is to completely demystify the clinical trial audit process. We're going to take that pre-audit panic and transform it into pure, structured preparation using our clinical trial audit preparation playbook. So let's jump right in. But before we get into who does what, you absolutely need to internalize this phrase. I don't know, but I will check that for you. Seriously, write it down. This is the ultimate golden rule of audits. When an inspector asks you a question, you literally never guess. You never, ever falsify. And please, whatever you do, never volunteer extra information that wasn't explicitly asked for. If you genuinely don't know the answer right then and there, that exact phrase is your absolute best friend. All right, let's look at the agenda. Today, we are mapping out your highly specialized clinical trial task force. We're covering the PI as the guardian of the trial, the sub-I as the medical oversight backbone, and the coordinators as the keepers of data. Then, we'll break down exactly who answers what on game day and wrap up with some final audit reminders. Let's start right at the top. Section 1. The PI, guardian of the trial, holding ultimate accountability at the site. So the single most important concept to grasp here is that the principal investigator holds the ultimate accountability for every single aspect of the trial. Honestly, it's an undelegatable force. Looking at the sheer scope of the PI's checklist, you can easily see the distinct areas of management. But the absolutely crucial point, that's the delegation of authority, or DOA log. The PI absolutely must review and initial this log every single month. Why? To prove they know exactly who is authorized to do what at all times. They've also got to ensure the most current REC-approved consent is being used, oversees signed source document verification, and, actually have a written plan ready for when they go on holiday. Now let's talk about one of the absolute strictest constraints in the entire trial process, 24. That is the exact number of hours the PI has to report serious adverse events, or SAEs, to the sponsor from the very moment they become aware of them. Not 2 days, not by the end of the week, literally 24 hours. There are absolutely no exceptions to this rule. Okay, let's put you in the hot seat for a second. Imagine I'm a highly stressed compliance inspector visiting your site. I look right at the PI, and I ask, what would you do if a coordinator told you they threw away a source worksheet? Yikes, right? So how do you answer a high-stress question like that without completely panicking? Well, here is the calm, textbook answer you need to have locked and loaded. You state, clearly and confidently, that throwing away a source document is a direct breach of ALCOA principles, meaning it violates the core standard that data must be attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. Then you explain that you would immediately report the incident to the sponsor, thoroughly document the issue, and instantly retrain all staff on source document retention. See what that does? It shows the inspector you prioritize immediate corrective action and transparency, rather than trying to sweep a major error under the rug. Moving on to Section 2, the sub-I, medical oversight backbone, serving as a qualified backup for delegated medical tasks. Right, so let's look at how this role actually builds on the PI's responsibilities. The sub-investigator acts as a highly qualified backup, but, and this is a big but, they operate only under strict, documented delegation. Notice their focus duties here. First off, their name has to be on that dual log with the correct tasks clearly checked off, alongside a current GCP certificate filed securely away. They handle the medical assessments, making absolutely sure to clearly sign and date all source documents. And critically, if they are covering for the PI during a holiday, there must be a written handover log. They can't just casually step in and wing it. The whole thing has to be flawlessly documented. Let's do another practice round. I'm the inspector again. I'm looking over some serious trial data. I turn to the sub-I and I ask a really high-stakes question. Why did you unblind subject 88? Now, unblinding a trial participant is a massive, massive event, so you really need a perfect answer ready to go for this one. And here is your perfectly composed response. You say, the patient had a medical emergency. I documented the necessity, and the sponsor was notified within 24 hours. Delivering this exact answer proves two vital things to the auditor. First, that patient safety is unequivocally your top priority. And second, that strict 24-hour protocol compliance is maintained, even right in the middle of a frantic medical emergency. Section 3, the coordinators, keepers of data, and your very first line of defense for ALCOA+. Coordinators are basically the daily managers of subjects and source documentation.
If Alcoa Plus is the shield, your coordinators are the ones holding it. Now, what's really interesting here is how vital it is to maintain distinct operational lanes for your team. Take Coordinator 1, for example. They handle the regulatory and pharmacy duties, managing that vital DOA log, the investigational medicinal product, and the trial master file. Then you have Coordinator 2, who focuses squarely on clinical and data duties. They're managing the ECRF, the source documents, and handling query resolutions. Keeping these two operational lanes totally clear and separate is absolutely essential for a smooth audit day.
And speaking of query resolution, look at this number, 14. This is the numerical goal every single clinical coordinator should have burned into their memory. You want to keep open data query resolutions strictly under 14 days. If an inspector points to a data query that's just been sitting open for, say, 45 days, you own the delay, you resolve it that exact day, and you state firmly that your site standard goal is under 14 days going forward.
Inspector time, one last round. So the inspector is flipping through a physical source document binder and suddenly stops dead. They've spotted a massive red flag. They look up and ask, why does this correction have whiteout on it?
Listen closely. You never, ever defend the use of whiteout. No excuses. You say exactly this. That is an unacceptable error. We will immediately correct it with a single line through, initial, date, and reason. This is literally the only acceptable way to fix documentation errors in clinical trials if you want to maintain audit readiness. Using whiteout completely destroys the audit trail, whereas a single cross line perfectly preserves the original entry so anyone can see exactly what was changed and why.
Section 4. Who answers what? Your master reference for audit day. So we know the roles and we know the rules. This matrix is your tactical game plan for the actual day the inspector walks through those doors. The really crucial point here is knowing exactly who speaks up and when. The PI answers for overall conduct and major medical decisions. The sub-I handles questions on the specific medical assessments they performed. Coordinator 1 talks regulatory, and Coordinator 2 talks clinical data. There's actually a fascinating strategy at play here. The coordinator is usually the primary responder during the audit. The PI greets the inspector, sets a great welcoming tone, makes sure everyone is comfortable, and stays available. But they do not hover in the room. You let the specific experts answer for their specific areas. It works like a charm.
Finally, Section 5, final audit reminders to set your team up for success.
We are at the finish line, guys, so let's fire through this ultimate summary checklist to ensure your clinical site isn't just prepared, but practically bulletproof. Ready? Alcoa Plus compliance is a daily habit. It is never a last-minute scramble. Never use whiteout or undated initials. The SAE reporting timeline is 24 hours with 0 exceptions. Seriously, set a calendar reminder right now for the PI to review the doc log monthly. And lastly, if a document is genuinely missing, just say so honestly and immediately provide a corrective action plan. Because at the end of the day, true compliance is just doing the right thing every single day. Which brings us to a really powerful reframe to end our playbook. The inspector is not your enemy. They validate the good work you do. Help them do that. An audit isn't some sort of punishment. It's actually a formal validation of your site's dedication to clinical excellence, data integrity, and above all, patient safety. So, I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. Is your team currently viewing the upcoming audit as a threat to be feared, or as an incredible opportunity to showcase your excellence to the world? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.